Okay, so here we are again. It's the 18th, I believe, of July, and we're covering some tiny rules for writing a book that builds your brand, builds your business, and hopefully changes the world, at least with respect to your own ideal audience or quintessential client community. So these are some simple rules. We have a bunch of heuristics down here that you can download. But the first one is your book is a bridge. And this is simply, at least to my mind, the most important element to this process. A tiny book builds a bridge between your words and the work that you actually do in the world. So it's really important to start there, right? I mean, you're not writing a book to sell a zillion books. That would be a great and noble, sort of goal, but it's unlikely to happen, and you're unlikely to make a lot of money from the actual book sales themselves. But where you can actually make a ton of money and really change your business is by dint of the clients and the leads and the connection that you build with your ideal audience or quintessential client community, again, by virtue of writing a tiny book that makes a big difference in the lives of your audience. So, four T's: title, type, target, and transformation. Really, really important, at least for me, to get very focused, especially when writing tiny books. It really kind of allows us to stay really focused on solving one problem or popping one pain for one specific person or one specific target market. Differentiation declaration. I'm not sure I spelled differentiation right here, but it's just the unlike other exercise where you're essentially creating a point of contrast between yourself and other folks who do what you do, right? We have lots of little worksheets and tips and kind of workflows for actually creating that, but that's an important part of this as well. A hook, and a hook generally is that sort of very cheesy thing that we see on TV at 3 o'clock in the morning. Cheesy infomercials and those sorts of things are the "what if I were to tell you" moment. But it doesn't have to be cheesy, right? You don't have to actually be some con man or woman or charlatan sort of salesperson to actually have this proposition. What if I were to tell you that dot 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 dot, that a one night plant ceremony in the Amazon jungle could do more for your mental health than 40 years of therapy. I mean, those are the sorts of hooks that, are really compelling, that are catchy, and that attract the attention of your audience. And again, that was just an example from something we did about a year ago for mindfulness based meditation teachers who were leading plant medicine style retreats. All right, so again, it doesn't need to be cheesy. It's just a good way of framing the exercise to kind of really narrow down what it is that you're actually writing about. Finite focus, so important. This is so difficult for me, but you want to embrace constraints, right? You want to avoid the urge to data dump all of your niche knowledge, your industry expertise, or all of the sort of abundant enthusiasm that we all bring to our work. You want to avoid doing that, in the service of not overwhelming your audience. So ask yourself, what can you remove? What can you clip, snip, cull, sort of, excise from what it is that you're doing that doesn't affect the audience outcome? And I'd also argue that doesn't affect the author outcome, right? If you have very specific goals and you follow this system to its natural end, you have tons of tiny books that you can write that actually build this entire self publishing platform for yourself that, again, doesn't require you to data dump all of your niche knowledge, your professional expertise, etc., in sort of every page or pixel of your first book. All right, I just covered this. Avoid the urge to overwhelm. Think small or start small. think series or scale. And if you've downloaded some of the other resources, you'll note that even if you're watching this on YouTube, I'm going to be sharing this on YouTube as well. Um, there is a worksheet that actually covers this process we call a content cornerstone, which is a vertical approach to bucketing and categorizing what it is that you know, and avoiding the urge to go very lateral or to go wide, and simply keeping everything in this very sort of siloed structure. So check that out. It will help you stay organized. Again, someone like myself who has lots of sort of attentional kind of blips in my brain. I drink a lot of coffee, and I tend to get very discombobulated when I'm doing this sort of work. So it really is helpful to like kind of keep everything constrained in a narrow channel, in a vertical channel, to avoid kind of like doing a lot of extraneous work that you ultimately don't need to succeed. All right, an end experience. I call this the transformation turnstile. You need a turnstile and a trigger. And the transformation turnstile, which we're going to cover elsewhere, is simply like, how does your audience, your ideal reader, your quintessential client, your community, your clients, your customers, whatever, how do they change by virtue of, how do they come out the other side different than how they came in? Again, we're going to cover this elsewhere as well. And you also need a trigger, and that's this aha moment, a eureka insight, a audience epiphany. And it doesn't have to be something crazy or genius. It simply needs to be something that gives them a new way of solving an old problem, or popping a pain, or healing a hurt. In other words, if you're teaching folks, if you're a nutritionist or a dietitian, or someone who's in fitness, and you're giving people a new way, let's say, to lose weight, and someone who spent 50 years, let's say, struggling with their weight, you can give somebody this sort of unique insight, epiphany, and excitement that actually wants it creates a sense of urgency in them wanting actually to immerse themselves more deeply in what it is that you're offering in your end experience, which could be a cause, a community, a coaching offer, a cohort, a course. It could be really anything that leads your reader through this bridge-like experience where your words introduce your work in the world. All right? Serialize your experience, scale your expertise by writing tiny books, creating tiny products, and building a tiny business that ultimately will be far bigger and far more exciting than trying to do one big thing on its own. Teach what you know, do what you love, and wake up the world with your work. Uh, the, the the tool that I'm using actually to create these new mini courses, we have a bunch of them. Sometimes it's a little glitchy, so I find that like I'm trying to click on this card to flip it and it's not going, but it doesn't matter. If you want to join us, there are links below. There's a worksheet and more information on some of our tiny book writing cohorts. The next one starts on August 1st, which is about 11 or 12 days away, and you will write a tiny book in 30 days that builds your brand, builds your business, and hopefully build your bank account to boot. All right, hope this has been helpful. If you have questions, as always, feel free to ask. I appreciate you, and I appreciate you watching. Thanks.